Alright, welcome everybody to my first live commentary. While I had initially planned on doing a live in-game commentary while playing a ranked game, unfortunately I realized that my hard drive does not write fast enough to record while playing a game. And so we're just going to have to go with the good old full replay of the last game I played. And so this is actually one of the games that was included in the Akali video guide that I have put together a couple weeks ago. And so if you guys haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. That's a kind of overview of various build and certain little mechanics and stuff for Akali. This one will be kind of explaining how to put that information together in an actual game. So hopefully this will at least be somewhat helpful and useful for you guys. I think it's actually a little bit nicer for both of us, for everyone here, to be using the replay file as opposed to a live game, just because it's a lot easier for me to slow down, pause things, explain decisions in more detail than I could if I was just playing the game live. And one of the reasons that, when you're playing a game, you're paying a lot of attention to your own, CS, and trying to talk about the thought process while you're playing is actually relatively distracting, I found. And I went through and did it once, and as a result, my CS was just absolutely atrocious. So for now, at least, until I get better at talking and playing at the same time, we're just going to stick with these guys. So anyway, I am playing Akali here in mid lane against a Cho'Gath. I'm just going to go ahead and rearrange these guys. Helped our Lee Sin along with his Wraiths, and then head to mid lane. We've got a Rumble top and a against their Wukong. Our Lee Sin is jungling against their V here. And then bottom lane we've got Graves and Nidalee against Alistar and Varus. Anyway, so as you can see, I went to lane with the good old 9 potions, 2 wards start. That's always a good thing to do with Akali. You've got such a weak early game and are so susceptible to ganks early on that it's just really, really smart to start like this. As you can see, at this point, I'm just trying to use my Q to harass, and then last hit with auto attacks, right? And the reason I'm doing this is that Cho is he's, like, while he has ranged spells, he's predominantly, like, a melee character, right? And so Akali does really well against melee characters. And the way you do that, like, the way you take advantage of this, like, strength of yours is by trying to keep a mark above your opponent's head, basically all the time, right? Like, if you're fighting against a melee champion and they've got a mark on their head, they're going to be very wary of walking in to get CS, right? And so basically, the result of that is that Cho's been using a lot of mana to get last hits so far. Lee Sin just tried to come in for a gank there. Unfortunately, he went in right as a creep wave was coming in, so he couldn't land a resonating strike, and Cho'Gath smartly just walked behind his creeps. V is obviously a very good jungler. She just got first blood with the Wukong up in top lane. Alright, so again, I'm just going back to trying to keep Cho constantly marked, right? Like, I'm just trying to use my Shroud here offensively to zone him out, and then continue to keep putting pressure on him. Unfortunately, right there, I actually used my mark on the minion there, not Cho'Gath, and so as soon as that happens, I backed off, because, like, that's just me being bad. If you ever mark the wrong target, it's pretty much always a good idea to back off, because that's a lot of your damage, right? Like, you're losing a lot of damage by marking the wrong target, right? And so you want to just back off, wait for your cooldowns, and then hopefully try it again. All I'm doing here is just trying to force Cho to use mana to last hit, right? Like, I'm standing in his creep wave, trying to constantly keep him marked, and just forcing him to use that Q and W to get any CS. Right. At this point, I've got a big wave building up, and it looks like Cho'Gath kind of recognizes that, and is just hanging back and waiting for my my creeps to get to his tower. Right? And so, still, again, as much, like, anytime you can put punishment on your enemy champion, like, on the enemy laner, it's always a good thing to do, right? Like, right there, Cho just came up to try to get some CS, and I put 2 auto attacks and a Q on him, right? Like, you just always want to be cognizant of the fact that you're stronger in 1v1s than your lane opponent most of the time, especially against melee champions like Cho, right? Like, Cho has sustain, he has CC, but when it comes to a straight-up 1v1 brawl, Akali's going to come out ahead, unless, you know, I get ganked or whatever. Anyway, just continue to last hit. My ward is about to run out. My top lane ward is actually, it's a little bit longer, but bottom lane ward's about to run out. Lee Sin's coming here, but let's see, right here, I see a full health V, right? I don't have a gap closer. I don't really want to deal with this. Even though Lee Sin is here, they've got a lot of minions and a lot of CC, right? And so, however, obviously at this stage of the game, Cho'Gath doesn't have a pink ward, right? Because he hasn't backs yet. V doesn't have a pink ward, and so like I know that I'm pretty much safe here, right? Like I can just if V even goes on me, I can at least throw down my shroud, maybe get a little damage on, and then just walk out, right? So like I'm not terribly worried, and so because of that, I just kind of go a little bit aggressive, turn on my shroud, and try to put some damage on Cho. Cho's actually playing this very smart. He's staying very far back and then using his CC. Unfortunately, Lee gets caught by everything and has to flash out. V follows him with a flash and picks up the kill. Actually, Cho'Gath got the kill with Ignite there. That was not an ideal situation. I guess on the plus side, I am now level 6, but down a kill against my lane opponent. And so, at this point, I don't want to go back, right? Like, I've got a lot of potions still. I just saw Cho'Gath go back. There's no point in me going back as well. Especially if, you know, I just want to hang out, get some CS, wait for my ultimate stacks to charge, and then hopefully put on some damage on Cho later, right, when he returns. Unfortunately, at this point, I've got no more wards. Apparently, I'm typing something because I decided I was too cool to CS there. Anyway, so now Cho's back. I'm level 7, he's level 6. He does have blue buff though, which is really annoying, because that means that forcing him to use his spells to CS isn't going to really do anything for me in the long run, right? Like he can use his Q and W to CS without worrying about running out of mana. At the same time though, I can still use my Q to get harassment on him and just hide in the trap, right? Like, when I see his CC go down, that's a good indication that I should just, you know, jump on him for a quick little burst. Anyway, Cho'Gath has been doing a pretty good job using his piece to get his stacks up. I think he's already got 2 stacks on that, so that's an extra good chunk of health for him. And so I'm just trying to hang out, get some CS, maybe put some damage on Cho. At this point, so let me just pause this for a second here. I know that Cho does not have Ignite, right? Like, he used Ignite to kill Lee Sin. I still have both my summoners up, right? And so with an ult stack and Ignite, I'm just trying to do some damage and hopefully bait Cho into like an all-in trade where I can hopefully come out on top. And I also just saw him use his Feast there on the minion, so that I know that is like a big burst of damage that's down, right? So like all I really have to worry about is getting caught by this Rupture, right? Like if his Rupture's down and his ult is down, Cho has very little damage that he can do to me, right? There's very little he can do to burst me down and get me down, especially when I still have my Shroud and there are no pink wards on the map, right? So I just go in, throw down some harass, do the good Q-E combination to get him down a little bit, and force him to go through like some more of his potions. So I'm just hanging out. At this point, so I got a Q on him. I'm waiting for my Q to come off cooldown, so it's about 2 seconds before my Q is off cooldown, and so I'm probably going to wait about another second and then ult onto Cho for the auto attack to get the Q, and then do another kind of Q-E combination to get that second Q triggered. So there, ult, auto attack, trigger the Q, get another Q, throw down the E, ignite, and just try to peace out and ignore his CC, right? So like the reason that I came ahead there is I just ignored his CC, or like dodged his CC, and just waited for my cooldowns, right? And so that's the thing. You want to play Akali to your cooldowns, right? Like you have to always be aware of what your cooldowns are and like how you can play them. Unfortunately, I'm an idiot and decided that CSing with no wards anywhere on the map here was a good idea when I had 200 health. So V is like, what is this kid doing? I'll just kill him, and she did. So that was a terrible idea, right? Like getting the kill on Cho'Gath was awesome, but there's no reason I had to get greedy and like get this cannon, right? I guess on the plus side, it gives Lee some farm, but like that's not a good trade, right? Especially when we look at the score here. V is 202, right? Like she has 300 more gold than anyone else in the game. Sorry, 500 more gold than anyone else in the game. That's not a good place to be, right? Like, especially when she just goes back and picks up a Lizard Elder at friggin' 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Anyway, so we are down 5 kills to 1. V is getting really fed. But at least I am now even on kills with my lane opponent, right? Like, the one saving grace there is that Cho'Gath did not get an assist from that kill. Alright, so at this point, like, I'm coming back to lane, warding up, and I know that I'm stronger than Cho, right, at this point. Like, I've got 3 ult stacks. He doesn't have a lot that he can do to me, especially when I can use my R to kind of dodge his ruptures, right? So like if I see him throw down a rupture, that's a good sign for me to just jump on him, right? So like I'll dodge the rupture with the R, and then I can put down some damage, right? So right there, I saw the rupture go down, and I tried to jump on him, but the range wasn't quite there. Like Cho's playing very safe right now, which is a good thing for him. So at this point, still just trying to farm up. V got another kill top lane on Rumble, who's now 0-3-0. So things aren't looking very good for us. And so at this point, like, I'm gonna go down and ward up here. It's always good. It's always good to keep both sides warded. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to gank bottom lane, right? Unfortunately, our bottom lane here has no CC, right? Like, we have Graves and Nidalee, so we just have to hope that they, you know, put themselves in a terrible position. And so at that point, as soon as the Varus barrier comes down, I'm out. Like, I don't want to deal with that, especially because we saw V coming through this ward, and then she also stepped on a Nidalee trap, so, like, I don't want to dive this V, right? Like, she's really big. Diving her would just be a terrible idea. But at least we did get a kill on Alistar, and gave our Graves some time to free farm and push this lane. And so if you actually look, Graves is now ahead 20 CS, right? So like, even though he's 0-1, he's pretty far ahead in gold, I think, right? So like 3,300 to 30. Okay, so it's about 200 gold ahead, which is awesome, right? Like, that's all you can ask for from your bottom lane. Is just to like be ahead in gold, right? Anyway, back in mid lane, I'm just trying to keep this Q on Cho as long as possible. Just try to do damage when I can. Unfortunately, you know, I see a Wukong here. I saw V walk by my ward, and I want absolutely nothing to do with a 3-on-1, right? So I'm just gonna hide in my tower, wait for them to walk away, and then just go back to CS. So I saw them go away, like, Wukong is back top lane, I saw V go back into a jungle, so that's, you know, an opportunity for me to go a little bit more aggressive on Cho'Gath, right? I saw him miss his rupture, but as soon as V comes in, I'm out, right? Like, I do not want anything to do with that. V does a good job kicking Cho away. I think he does something kind of silly here. Yeah, so he lands that Q, which is great, but then decides to go in on it. Like, that was not worth it. That was absolutely not worth it. Right, like he just lost like 600 health from that little exchange. Fortunately for me, I've got a revolver and a potion still chugging, but I apparently decided that walking into that rupture was a good idea. Unfortunately, so this is a good example of something that people do pretty often, right? So Cho just hit a rupture on me, and then decided that like because I only have like 500 health now, he's gonna try to dive me into the tower, right? Like so like he still has his ultimate up, right? He's got his ignite up. But he doesn't have a pink ward, right? And I still have my shroud. So like as soon as that rupture lands, I'm just gonna immediately shroud, right? Because I don't like I know he's gonna try to dive me, and so I'm just gonna try to use my tower to the greatest extent possible, right? So just hide in my shroud, put some damage on him, right? And then go back to being stealth, right? So as soon as I do my little burst rotation, I go back in the shroud. Throw ignite on him. My tower just did like 600 damage onto Cho'Gath, and so like that's the only reason that I was able to get that kill, right? Like baited out my shroud, and then just wait for my tower to do the mad damage, right? Like as soon as my tower did 600 damage, I know that I can kill him, right? Like I've got my ignite, I've got the kind of double Q proc that I did there, and just use my ults. And so that was just Cho being silly and trying to dive Akali with a shroud, right? Like that's not something you could do. So at this point, going in, taking my rightfully won jungle creeps and heading bottom lane. I did not realize here that I had actually walked through a ward, but based on that information, like both Alistar and Varus saw me walk through that ward, and so at this point, like Alistar should just be backing out, right? Like there's no reason he should be hanging around still when he sees that I'm bot lane, right? And so I'm just gonna hang out here. As soon as I see Alistar jump in, like I know he's dead, right? So I just go in, kill Alistar, and at this point I'm fine just kind of pushing the tower. But when I see that spear land from Nidalee, I just immediately go hard, right? Graves actually followed me into the tower, which wasn't the best idea. Like, I had that kill guaranteed, so he didn't need to follow me. V ults him. Fortunately, though, Graves and Nidalee are pretty good at escaping, and so V chases them instead of me, right? Like, if V ulted me, I would have died. But instead she went for Graves, and at this point, I'm just trying to get out, right? Like, I saw Wukong come down from top lane, or whatever, Rumble pinged Wukong gone. I saw Cho try to chase me, and so I'm just coming in to execute myself, because I don't want to even try to escape that with my life. Anyway, so that was a good trade, right? Like, we got 2 kills, they didn't get any. I died, but it was to a tower. And so that was definitely a good trade, especially since we got top tower and didn't actually get any damage on the middle tower, but, you know, this tower's gone. Graves is pretty far ahead at this point.
Purple team's turret has been destroyed.
So after coming back to lane with my full Gunblade and Sorcerer's Boots, like I know at this point I'm in a really, really strong position. Fortunately, I didn't jump on Cho'Gath there because V was waiting in the brush, right? Like that could have been really bad for me, but my team was pinging dragons, so I decided to go help with that, which was definitely the right decision. I'm pretty sure though that at the same time, yeah, it's another dead Rumble. But you know, 0-4 Rumble for a dragon, that's a great trade. Like V got maybe 100 gold from that kill. Like Rumble's worth very little gold right now, and we just got. Like, we got Rumble more gold from this dragon than V got by killing him, right? So, like, that was definitely a good trade for us. And the one saving grace about this 0-4 Rumble is he's actually doing a pretty good job CSing, and so is Lee Sin, right? So, like, our entire team is ahead in CS. So, like, even though we're behind a kill, and we're, let's see, even on towers, we're way ahead in CS, and so we're actually up global gold. Alright, so at this point, you know, I'm just going back to lane, trying to farm up. Rumble dies, so I'm going to go take his CS top as it hits the tower, which is a good trade. So Rumble's going mid, I'm going top. Unfortunately, V gets the kill bottom lane, right? Like, while I'm top lane, there are 4 people bottom, including Wukong and B, and that's good. On the plus side, their plan there was to, like, make a play bottom lane and then take dragon, but we had already taken dragon, and so we didn't really lose a whole lot because of that. Plus, I was able to get this tower, and so we're trading bottom outer tower for top outer tower. That's not a terrible loss for us. Alright, so at this point, I make a really weird decision here, right? Like, I pick up Mejai's. Let me just talk a little bit about the thought process here, while this is kind of farming up. The reason I bought this is that, like, we're down in global kills, we're even on towers, we're up in dragons. Like, I know that with Gunblade and Sorcerer's Boots and at level 13, like, I'm as strong as I'm gonna get right here. Like, this point in the game, like, I've got 5 points in Crescent Slash, 2 points in my ultimate, 5 points in my Q. Like, this is my, like, the peak of my strength, right? Like, I am the strongest that I will be relative to everyone else in the game at this point. And so my thinking was that I want to stay in lanes, and I want to keep applying as much pressure everywhere across the map as I can while I'm really strong. And so if you look at my gold value, right after taking Wraiths, I only have 100. So, like, I had the perfect gold for buying a Mejai's, and so I went ahead and did that, right? And the other reason is that if I'm planning on staying in different lanes and fighting for, like, an extended period of time, Mejai's will actually help me do that by increasing my power level as I continue to play and continue to fight, right? So, like, generally speaking, if I had gotten the other thing I was thinking of, which are the 2 components to a Haunting Guise, so if I had picked up instead a Amplifying Tome and Ruby Crystal, I could continue to stay and fight in these things, but if I had picked up kills or assists, I would get gold, but I wouldn't be able to convert that gold into any more power level, or any additional power, until I go back and shop, right? And so Mejai's allows me to kind of ramp up in power without shopping, right? And so because I'm really strong right now, that's what I want to do, right? Like, I want to stay around the map, I want to keep fighting, and I want to continually ramp up in power without necessarily having to go back and shop, right? So that's what I did here. Just trying to focus, some damage on Cho, but just harass at this point, right? Like, I'm trying, like, Rumble is mid lane, right? And so I want us as a team to group up somewhere and fight, right? So especially with Wukong top, I'm trying to tell my team to, like, we should make a play here. Unfortunately, I sat in a ward, but the result was that we forced Alistar's flash, and so that's definitely good. Here, Varus makes a pretty dumb decision by trying to walk into a brush that he knows where we all are. So Graves forces him out, we all collapse on Alistar, who, as we just saw, had no flash, because he burnt it escaping over that wall. And we basically get a free tower, right? So, like, yes, Wukong is top and got top tower, but we have 5 people bottom against 3 now, right? So, like, they have to back off. And so that's the reason that I was kind of hanging out right up here, is that I wanted to make sure that we got this free tower, right? Like, we've got a huge minion wave. Graves and Nidalee are great at pushing and taking down towers, so that was a good trade. Top tower, outer for bottom tower, inner was a good trade for us. At this point, I told my team, like, yo guys, now that they're all bottom, let's just go take mid tower, right? And so unfortunately, V comes in with the ultimate, Wukong comes in with the ultimate, Cho'Gath comes in with his rupture, so they get a lot of CC on us, but they only take down Lee Sin, right? So, like, Graves and myself, like, the 2 biggest damage sources, are just kind of hanging out in the background, like, free of, like, just kiting them and doing free damage. Additionally, Rumble landed a really great ult diagonally here that hit basically 3 of their teammates, right? Like, and that's a lot of control. Like, Rumble is pretty much our only CC, and it's not even hard CC, right? Like, we've got damage from me, we've got damage from Graves, we've got, like, poke and heals and some damage from Nidalee. Lee Sin has his kick, but, like, we have no real CC, right? So, like, our only hope is to force that, like, let them engage on us and then kite and do damage, right? And Rumble's ultimate is great for that. And so, as you saw there, Rumble just went from 0-4-0 to 2-4-2, right? So he is like 100% back in this game, right? So if we look at the gold, we have 6.1 to 6.2. So Rumble is now only 100 gold down on his lane opponent, even though he was 0-4-0 not long ago. So I'm just going to go ahead, get me some cannon minion experience, push bottom lane out a little bit, and then back off. And so I think at this point I'm trying to wait to see who's going to come, right? Like if Varus came for that CS, I could have easily killed him, but Cho was there too, so I continued to back off and, you know, go buy my next item. My next item, as you can see, was just a full straight Haunting Guise, right? So this was what I was planning on getting originally, but I didn't quite have enough gold for it, so I got the Mejais instead. And as you can see, I'm actually at 5 stacks now, with a Haunting Guise and Sork Boots and Gunblade, so I'm really strong at this point in the game. And so even though we just lost Rumble and Graves to some careless mistakes, and as a result lost Dragon, I'm still really strong. Unfortunately, there's absolutely no way I can go in on that, so I just throw down a ward to make sure I see where their entire team is. I do not want to get caught out by anyone, and as a result go in on that like free kill on Varus, basically. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and back this up. So right here, let me show you this from my perspective, right? I see their entire team walk by this ward of mine, and I just want to make sure that there's no one here, right? So by placing a ward here, right, like I just saw their whole team walk by. I want to make sure that no one comes in here, and I see a low health Varus, right? Like that is just free kill right there, right? Like Varus has no magic resist, like really clean kill right here. At this point, I don't know where the other team is. I assume they're coming from somewhere around here, but as soon as I see them coming up the lane, I want to jump back to those creeps, right? Unfortunately, I see my teammates coming and think that, oh, this is a good time to fight, right? Like, we just killed their AD carry, so I jump on Wukong, I immediately get pulverized by Alistar, immediately get ulted by V, then get ruptured by Cho'Gath, and, like, 3 knockups before I can even move, and I'm just dead. And so that was bad. They've got a really nasty team in terms of, like, CC and teamfight ability, right? Like, V can single target knock up someone, Wukong can AoE knock up someone, Alistar can AoE knock up someone, and Cho'Gath can AoE knock up someone. So they have 4 knockups, 3 of which are AoE, right? So like, if they land their CC, they've got a really strong team. And so at this point, I was like, well, that was dumb, right? Like, if I had played that correctly, as soon as I saw the enemies coming here, I would have ulted back to their creeps and just pieced out. But I thought that we could take them, totally underestimated the amount of CC and damage that their team did, and as a result, like, gave up a really dumb kill. That's especially not something you can do if you're building a Mejai's, right? Like, if you have a Mejai's, like, you need to be safe, right? Like, that's the only rule to playing with a Mejai's. Like, you need to stay safe and not lose your stacks, right? And so at this point, I'm just trying to get level 16, which will give me a good little bump in power, right? Clearing out some wards, just kind of hanging out. Okay, so here, we're all middle, except for Nidalee. They're all middle. Rumble goes hard and takes Varus down, like, immediately, right? So I'm like, oh great, this is awesome. Unfortunately, I did not see that V just threw down a pink ward, and so Wukong ulted me, and then V ulted me, and I'm just CC'd before I can do anything, right? So like, I did not pay attention to their inventories, and as a result, again, died immediately, right? So that was bad on me, but fortunately it means that Wukong ult and V ult were both used just to kill me, right? And so that's not a terrible exchange, especially as Rumble is just doing work right now. So he's doing his thing, throws out the Zhonyas, baits them out, and I think we get both kills. Yeah, so that was a pretty good exchange. Unfortunately, like, when you're playing Akali, you just always need to be like cognizant of what their items are, right? Like if they have pink wards, you can't just play aggressively. Like I can't dive into their team with my ultimate and just assume I can safely shroud, right? So that was my bad. As a result of that, I lost a lot of stacks, and as you can see, I went from like 7 stacks down to like 2, and so I was like, okay, screw this. Like I'm getting focused. Like V is just going for me every time. I need some health, so I start building towards my Warmogs and just sell the Mejais. Right, like it did its job in that it allowed us to like start snowballing, get a couple towers, and start winning some team fights. But now I don't need it. Right, like my job now is to stay alive and not die. All right, so at this point, we're doing the kind of Baron dance thing. We've got really fantastic ward coverage, right? Like I cannot stress enough how important it is, especially as a Akali, to just have wards everywhere, right? Like I can jump over this wall with my ultimate as long as I've got vision, right? And so we get the pick off on Cho. He's really tanky, but with all 5 people, we just kill him immediately, right? That's what you want to do as a Akali, right? Like late game, if you are getting focus in team fights, the solution is to not team fight, right? Like the solution is to not engage in a 5v5 team fight, but instead ward up their jungle and make a pick, right? Like Akali is really, really fantastic at picking off out of position people, and so with good ward coverage, you can really easily figure out who's out of position and who you can take out and turn into like a 4v5. Right, and so we get Baron. I jump in on them in Shroud just to try to, scare them a little bit. I didn't want to fight there. That's why I didn't continue the chase. Like obviously, I cannot 1v4. That would be a terrible idea. But just kind of hang out, take down, like put some damage in the tower, and use Baron buff. Unfortunately, we don't have any minions here, and so I'm like, yo guys, we gotta push this wave before we can take the tower. But Lee Sin didn't get the memo, went in for a dive, and just died. Fortunately, at this part, I'm going to slow this down now. V went really hard for Graves, and just totally forgot, I guess, that I was like right behind him, right? And so they kill Graves, but I'm still at full health. Lee Sin and the rest of the team got Varus pretty low, and so at this point, like, Rumble and I just go to town on this low health team, right? Like this is like your dream as a Akali, right? Like to chase people and have them all like at low health. And so I got, I think, 4 assists from this little fight here. And so like every time I get an assist, right? Like my ult, as soon as Alistar goes down, boom, another ult stack, right? And so each ult stack at level 17, that's like a free, 300 damage that I can put on this Cho'Gath or put on whoever the next target is. And so I wait for Nidalee to tank the tower, go in, and try to take out Cho. Unfortunately, Cho still had his ult and ignite, and so Nidalee like died immediately. But we got the ace. We're gonna get the tower. Like that was a great fight. This is what you want. Like from our team, you want like me and Rumble, or Rumble and Graves, or me and Graves to be alive at the end of the fight. And so if that's the case, that's generally a good thing, right? And so let me just bring up the score screen now. So Rumble, who was 2-5-2, is now 8-5-7, right? So like this guy has just been doing absolute work in team fights with his ultimate, right? Like he's been landing great ultimates, which as like our only real kind of CC or kiting and control, like that's what's helping us like stay really far ahead in this game. So at this point, I pick up a blasting wand and home guard boots. The reason is that I could have picked up blasting wand and an amplifying tome, so that this is going to go towards a void staff, right? Like if we look at their item, they've got Merc Treads and Hex Drinker. They've got Merc Treads here. They've got Merc Treads and Abyssal Scepter and a Null Magic Mantle here. Like they've got a lot of MR, and so my next item is definitely gonna be a Void Staff, right? And so instead of getting Blasting Wand and Amplifying Tome, I got Blasting Wand, and home guard boots so that I could keep room for some wards, right? Like, our team has been doing a really great job warding so far, and I just want to, you know, like, keep that up, right? Like, do my part, help my team continuously ward, right? So I'm gonna throw down some damage here, but like, just do a good job helping my team. That was really lucky that Varus missed there. Like, we had no idea that V was in that brush, and that could have gone disastrously, especially if that ultimate landed. But fortunately, it did not. I think even if it did, we would have been okay. Rumble would have been able to land a great ultimate right there in that choke. But knowing that Varus's ult is down, that gives us basically free reign to do whatever we want, right? So like, I'm gonna go steal their red. Maybe not. Maybe we're just gonna push. But that's actually probably good, right? Like, my team is like, yo guys, like, you shouldn't go steal their red. Like, we know that we have an ultimate advantage, especially with all this damage, right? Like, that is just huge damage right there. And so my theory there was just like, bait out V, kill her, while Rumble just goes to town on the rest of their team. And that's pretty much game at that point, right? Like, we just killed two of them. We're inside their nexus. Unfortunately, we don't have any towers or inhibitors. We're just like going way too hard, right? Like, we can't do damage to these towers even if we wanted to, right? Like, not only do we not have an inhibitor down, we don't even have a tower. That was a fantastic ultimate by Lee Sin to save our Graves there. But yeah, so we should have done that a lot earlier. Like, instead of diving and farming behind their inhibitors, we should have just taken this to begin with, and we probably would have had time to take the inhibitor too. But at least we got the tower and some more gold. And so at this point, I think I finish up my Void Staff, and we're looking really good right now. Especially with the Will of the Ancients on Rumble. Like, that's usually not a great pickup, except when you have double AP and both of them synergize so well with Spell Vamp. Like, that's just such a strong ability, right? So like, if we look at, I don't know if we can bring up my stats here, but with Gunblade, my passive, and Will of the Ancients, I'm sitting on like 55% Spell Vamp, right? Like, that's really, really strong. And not only that, but I've got a War Mox to boot, right? So I've got 3,300 health and 55% Spell Vamp, right? So I'm in a great position right now, especially with the Void Staff. Another thing to note about the Void Staff, with the changes to Season 3, is that the percent magic resist penetration from Void Staff is actually applied before flat penetration like Sorcerer Boots and Haunting Guys. So in Season 2 and before, picking up a Void Staff would actually reduce the effectiveness of your Sorc Boots and Haunting Guys. But now that the percent is applied before the flat, it actually amplifies the effectiveness of your flat penetration items, right? So Void Staff and Haunting Guys actually synergize pretty well now. So that's just something to think about when, like, if you've got Sorc Boots and Haunting Guys, like, that's a lot of flat penetration, but that doesn't mean that, like, you know, picking up a Void Staff is a bad idea, right? Like, I'm doing true damage to Varus at this point. I'm doing almost true damage to most of their team, even though they've got a good amount of magic resistance. That's really strong. Alright, so at this point, we've got the inhibitor. I don't think no one has Baron buff anymore, but we're still really strong. And so I'm like, yo guys, let's just push towers, right? Like, we know V is bottom, let's just take top. And so we're just grouping as 5, trying to poke them down with myself and Nidalee and Rumble here. So as soon as the Wukong ultimate goes out, I just flash. I'm out of there. I don't want to get caught by their like giant CC train. Unfortunately, I actually do. So not only did Wukong ult me, but Varus ulted me and V ulted me as well. But because I've got such ridiculous spell vamp and health, I can just tank through all that CC and all those ultimates. And so they used 3 ultimates, or they used 2 single target ultimates, Varus and V, like just on me, and it literally did nothing. Like, they also threw down a pink ward to make sure they did Shroud, but because I've got the spell vamp and the war mox, like, I just ignored all of The other great thing is because I had this ward, I could just jump over the wall onto Varus, right? And so like V was then stuck over here while I'm, killing his backline, right? And that's pretty much GG at that point. Really, really fantastic Rumble play, I've got to say. Like, it's solid team fighting all around. Anyway, that's it for today. If you like what you see, please subscribe below. In the future, I will upload some more games, hopefully one of which will include me losing my lane and showing what you do when you get behind, how to come back through team fights and objectives and all that good stuff. And hopefully another replay coming soon with some more team fighting kind of mechanics. So like how to use Zhonya's effectively, how to engage and disengage effectively, and how to kite with Akali. Anyway, that's it for me, and I'll see you guys next time.